At 29 minutes after 6, this is Morning Express, and we're looking at some of those stories making headlines. It was an honorable house that turned into a battle zone as members of the Wajir County Assembly resorted to exchanging blows. Faisal Abdurrahman tells us why.
This is the second time Wajir County Assembly was coming under fire in a span of just 2 months. The supposedly honorable house turning into a zone of exchanging fist cuts between warring parties in the house. Members ganged up accusing their bosses, the majority leader and the chief whip, of failing in their mandate over the constitution of the Assembly Service Board. The fearing lawmakers said time was running out.
This is a house of rules and numbers. The majority have decided that the inefficiency and the fracas are brought by the inefficient leadership. That's why they've decided to change the leadership. And we urge the Speaker of the House to use the standing orders, to use the rules, to use the regulations of the House.
The purported replacement of the leaders some of the members are talking about is illegal. It is not there. It doesn't work like that.
And it's not just the two leaders. The Speaker too was under fire, accused of colluding with the county executive, making it difficult to establish the service board.
An assembly that is not doing what is required of by the people who elected them. We cannot be an impasse every now and then. Things have to move forward.
Of Jubilee, we have elected the majority governor as a majority leader before, and now we have changed him.
During the melee, journalists covering the sessions were not spared either. They were roughed up and thrown out of the chambers. Nominated lawmaker Hussein Mohammed led the onslaught, but moments later he was repenting his sins.
And in fact, I didn't know. I was fighting with the media or with my colleagues. So I'm apologizing to the media. Sorry.
As tension continues to build up in the House, the members are expected to resume operations on 24th April, but it's not clear whether the issue will be discussed again. Faisal Abdurrahman, KTN News.
All right, and well, it looks like honorable members behaving dishonorably. I don't know what happens in some of those houses that things literally whittle down to a fist fight. I've always been left thinking that if our leaders cannot communicate, in an intelligent manner, why go down to fist fights?
I'm one person who feels like we elected people who don't know their mandates across the board in terms of MCAs. We elected MCAs who don't know their role. Some of them even don't understand why they are there. In fact, it again shows the level of intolerance among our leaders that we have. If they go to an extent, instead of fighting amongst each other, they are even roughing up journalists. That shows you the level of mediocrity with our elected MCAs. That shows the level of insincerity. Because immediately after election, when these counties assemblies were being set up, we had some stories about MCAs fighting each other on who to join committees. Then again, there was another story from Bungoma where MCAs led the public in removing the principal, Kamsinga principal. So we are having a problem that we are electing MCAs and the MCAs still think that they are former councillors. Yeah, there's a difference between a councillor and an MCA.
And an MCA. Yeah. Although it looks like it's not uniquely a Kenyan problem. I remember in Uganda, there was a clip that was doing rounds. I think it even got to the US where, I forget his name, the comedian who literally, took it up. And there was this guy who was acting like MJ, literally doing like Michael Jackson. But it's not uniquely Kenya. There's Uganda. I think I've also seen that at one time in, was it Zimbabwe, in South Africa as well, where the house literally just becomes a war zone.
I think it's a form of expression. It seems that when people lack communication skills, they express anger through actually physically fighting each other. And that's an issue because, Chapter 6 of our Constitution talks about leadership, it talks about morals. But then, perhaps we needed to insert conduct and say no fist fighting, no pushing, no punching.
Although it seems like if it's there in the Constitution about leadership and integrity, that has not stopped our leaders for not being, transparent and all that. So I don't know even if we put it there, whether it would still help.
No.
But anyway, I remember, I think, the words of Chinua Achebe. He once said that Okonkwo, when he could not express himself using his mouth, he would use his fist. So it looks like it's something that maybe we've inherited from our ancestors. It's quoted. Moving on now to other stories. A section of Luhya leaders have dismissed plans by Ford Kenya Party leader Moses Wetangula and his ANC counterpart Musalia Mudavadi to unite the community under one political outfit. This comes as some leaders from the Mount Kenya region held a meeting with ODM leader Raila Odinga in what could signal new political alliance in the offing.
The push by ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi and his Ford Kenya counterpart Moses Wetangula to unite the Luhya community appears to be facing turbulence even before the dust from the NASA fallout has settled. A section of Luhya leaders have tore into Mudavadi and Wetangula newfound alliance, saying it was headed nowhere.
And out of frustration now, they are now trying to run to tribal cocoons, which we condemn very strongly. Because Western region is not entirely Luhya. We have other communities like Sabot and Teso. We have Baturas. We have the Tachonis.
We need roads in Western region. We need water in the Western region. We need even title deeds for our own people. We have Mumias Shuka, we have Nzoia Shuka. We need such a things. And these things can be only found in the government, but not outside the government.
Wetangula has failed he has failed to manage 28 NASA senators. How is he going to lead millions of Luhyas in Western Kenya?
While accusing Mudavadi and Wetangula of being self-centered, the politicians argue that they can only unite under the Jubilee Party, which is in government, for the benefit of the electorate.
What will Musalia bring to Western Kenya that he never brought when he was alive? He has been a very senior government minister from Moi's time. So what is he going to bring to the people of Kimilili constituency that he never brought, which I've managed to bring in the last 6 months?
Talking from a tribal perspective is an indication of somebody who is drowning. So Wetangula and Mudavadi should drown on their own.
It is easier for them to join us rather than us coming out of the party, the big party like Jubilee or government to join them on the other side.
However, those in support of dissolving ANC and Ford Kenya Party to form one political vehicle that will unite all Western Kenya leaders argue that for years politicians have been taking advantage of the divisions within the Mulembe nation.
Our community, the Luhya, needs to kind of waken up so that we have one bargaining power. And that power is the one that will make people respect us and even make us join government.
Mutu wa Mulembe, the majority cannot continue to be subordinate to the minority day in, day out.
The new turn of events raises questions as to whether the push for Luhya unity will be realized this time round. But even as the leaders differed over Western unity, some new political realignments could be in the offing. Former Kiambu Governor William Kabogo held talks with ODM leader Raila Odinga at his Capitol Hill office in what many pundits believe to be an alliance of sorts coming from the famous Uhuru-Raila handshake. Details of the meeting are still scanty, but it will be remembered that Kabogo once told Deputy President William Ruto that he should not expect automatic support from Mount Kenya region come 2022 presidential elections. Others who have met Raila at his Capitol Hill office include former Kiambu women rep Ann Nyokabi and members of the Nairobi business community. The meeting comes hardly a week after Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko accused some leaders from Mount Kenya region of holding night meetings to strategize on how to block Deputy President William Ruto from ascending to the presidency in 2022. Chris Dairu, KTN News.
So the title there is Elusive Luhya Unity, and this is a story that's running in all the dailies. This morning on the Standard, we have it on the front page, and Raila says Wetangula is the problem. We have it on the Daily Nation as one of the main stories, where Raila hammers Wetangula in NASA fallout, and on the Star we also have it, and it basically is describing the same thing. Nerima, we are seeing some political formations, and this of course is expected after the elections, and of course as politicians now begin to prepare themselves for the next big thing, which probably would be 2022. Well, there's between now and then, but of course we'd expect formations being done between now and 2022.
Absolutely. I'm not only seeing just new formations, I'm seeing new faces as well. When we talk about even Luhyas, we can talk about Sifuna, we can talk about Shigai. There are people who are coming in who are younger, and that is encouraging. But I think what we've forgotten is that we are in a time where our politics is changing. It might be slow and incremental, but it's changing. Because when we think about, for instance, Busia County, and we're talking about the different types of Luhyas that live there, there's a population of Luos that has increased within Busia County, and they own a lot of the businesses in Busia. So it's not just the Luhyas. There are other tribes who live within these different counties. So the fact that we've always strategized on this tribal blocking when it comes to voting is not necessarily going to work. We need individuals who can sort of feed into different aspects as a citizen, but not just as a tribal king or queen.
And are Kenyans looking for tribal leaders or national leaders? Because at the end of the day, we would expect that if any of these, for instance, Wetangula is looking or positioning himself to be a leader, it should not just be under the banner of a Luhya leader. It should be a national leader.
It should be a national leader. I want to say that young people vote differently, but we don't. In 2017, we voted according to tribal blocks. And even when we look at university settings, when we look at student politics, they vote according to tribal blocks. But I think more and more people are beginning to question, what does it really mean if I vote for a person from my tribe? I'm Luhya, but do I really identify with this Luhya unity? The answer is no, I do not. I don't. And so we find that there are a lot of youth who don't necessarily fit into this block of how you're supposed to think. And that's where the change and diversity is going to occur, where people just want to see progress, services within their grassroots level, county level, and they don't necessarily care who's bringing it. So that's why we're beginning to see outliers, where we have Asians in some places in Kisumu, where we have Kikuyus in areas that are Luo. We're seeing people who are actual individuals within the community that the community trusts, and they're not really basing it on tribe. Yes.
Joe, your thoughts on whether we are actually going to see a time in Kenya where we have national leaders as opposed to tribal leaders?
I've been listening to my colleague Nerima talking, and what I can get from that, yes, she says she's a Luhya, but she does not identify herself with the Luhya unity. You know, Mulembe nation is one of the democratic nations more than even a country called Kenya.
In what sense?
If you go today to Nyanza and you talk about something else apart from what the Odingaism is talking about, you will be kicked out mercilessly. If you go to Central and you go against Utamaki, you will face it rough. If you go to Rift Valley and you talk about something else, not William Samuel Ruto, you'll be kicked out. So in Mulembe, Mulembe nation is one of those nations where there's a lot of democracy, that people are allowed to speak in different language.
So in short, are you saying that the Luhyas are already united, or are you saying that they're democratic in the sense that they're not just looking at a Luhya leader, but they can elect anybody so long as they represent their interests?
As per now, that's what we can say. But one thing I want to comment about this issue, about Wetangula's issue, is like this. When the side, what I understand is the Jubilee side from Western are not taking Wetangula serious, because when they were asking for Luhya unity before 2017 election, Wetangula and the group which was leading the NASA onslaught was telling them, no, we cannot talk about Luhya unity. You first join NASA, then we'll talk about unity in NASA. And that's the same thing what they're telling him. The Walukes, the other leaders from Western region, they're telling Wetangula, when we were talking about Luhya unity, where were you? You were telling us to join NASA. Now we are in Jubilee, we are in government. What we need is about development. We need to take roads to our people. We need to take hospital to our people. We need to take services to our people. And you are telling us about leaving Jubilee, coming together as Luhyas and forming a political party. And as you know, with our politics nature, is that as a community, you cannot elect yourself into office. You need to do some alliances. Actually, what Luhya leaders should be doing now is to go and deliver to their people.
All right,
and
Nerima,
stop politics.
when will we ever get, or what will it take for us to learn that having a Luhya as president does not necessarily benefit Luhyas? Having a Luo as president does not necessarily benefit Luos. We need to have leaders who basically look at development of the country, not segments or tribes.
That's a very complex question, because when we look at our independence in terms of having a federal system and the way resources were distributed, you can trace to where having that seat actually benefited people that were close to the CBD, which is Nairobi. So the counties which are close to Nairobi do have better access to roads, do have better access to power, and things like that. So it did help. But now that devolution has come in, it'll be now 2018, is 8 years since our new constitution and all that, we're beginning to see that devolution has spread these resources apart. So to base it upon that it didn't necessarily matter would be false. We need to come to an understanding that it did. And when we look at our state boards, in fact, you will see there are particular tribes who are within that board more than others. And there are people who can actually show that with statistics. But then if we do not come to realize that as a country, that there's been a history in that sense, but right now we're not really feeling it. But when it comes to accessibility, there was a point it happened. Then it'll be difficult for us to build upon that. So at the moment right now, yes, it's true that tribe doesn't really play that much of a difference. But when you talk to students, for instance, and they talk about applying for a job, there've been a lot of people who've told me that they've changed their last name because they feel that it will be
an advantage to have a particular name.
Yes.
Or a disadvantage.
Yes. So the fact that that can actually happen is showing you that tribe in some areas actually has an impact on your own life and well-being. So it is there, but not as deeply rooted as it used to be.
As it used to be.
Yes.
And do you think we're making progress in the speed that we should towards moving away from that, to having one nation as opposed to a divided nation? There's nothing wrong with people being comfortable and enjoying their tribe and their culture.
Yes.
The issue is when it's negative ethnicity.
Absolutely. I think more and more people are beginning to realize that it's definitely an issue in our country, and people are beginning to recognize that. And that's why I think there's now discussion as to how to even out distribution and even out the different counties so that they're almost equalized in terms of resources. So I think that these conversations are important to have. We shouldn't feel, for instance, that your name shouldn't make you feel some form of shame or some need to hide it. You should be proud of your ancestral roots. And that's something that I think we need to also start having conversations with young people.
All right. Joe, your comments on whether we are moving towards the right direction?
Actually, immediately after we amalgamated the new constitution, we as Kenyans felt like we need to take another direction and move on and forget about and bury these issues that we are having, ethnicity, things to do with the lack of not sharing the national cake equally. And one thing, after the 2013 election, then this election, after 2 elections with this new constitution, you can clearly see. At one point, someone told us that after we have embraced devolution, we will not be fighting for the seat of presidency. You'll be hearing people fighting, community fighting for the seat of the governor. But that's not the case. Still, people and still community feel like for them to have that privilege, for them to have that access to other economic and other things, they need to have power, and that is presidency. So I don't know how we are going to fix it, but one thing for sure, we need to fix it.
We need to fix it.
Because we are going to lose this country.
Absolutely. And, well, let's now look at what's making headlines on the dailies and possibly what you could look out for in your papers. And on the Standard this morning, what we have is Varsity scramble for a handful of A stars. And that is with Matiang'i, of course, the A is now a little bit more refined. So we have less A's, and universities are basically out to get those. But that is a good thing in the sense that at least when you have an A, then you know it is a qualified A. It is one that is genuine. But also, education sector, of course, suffering quite a number of blows. And Nerima, you deal a lot with the youth, with Siasa Place. You are thinking in terms of our university placement and whether it is answering to the need that is out there in the world today in terms of the education system that we have.
Yes, I was looking at the courses that they're going to select. It's like the only two choices were engineering and surgery, which it's interesting that there's so many other fields
that are available.
But then our top students, which did very well, those are the two sectors that they've focused on. And
Oh, sorry for interrupting you, but I was not supposed to come into that point. For me, I'm supposed to raise a different angle to do with this thing about our brothers and sisters from high school. There's a problem in this country. We are not talking about 1 million+ students who did not qualify to join the university.
But even joining to do what? Yesterday I was with university students who told me they've been idle for 8 months. What can I do?
Yeah,
Give me something to do. So even though we are...
And some of those are qualified. They've graduated, they have the papers, but to do what?
So do you mean in this country we have overrated the university degree?
I would not say we've overrated it. I just think we need to think differently in terms of employment and what needs to be done. Because at the end of the day, yes, it is good to have those courses, but I think where the world is moving to right now is that we need to think of education differently rather than just university. But now that we are still on the Standard, on page 3, there's also an interesting article there, because again, it has to do with the youth. And apparently, your child could be acting in porn movies behind your back. Very, very worrying statistics and information there. The Right Organization says children are performing sexual acts in front of webcams on mobile phones in cyber cafes and for online clients. Very worrying.
Wow. Yes, it is. And the fact that it's, I'm seeing something where it says remote audience in return for payment. So they're actually being paid for that.
They're actually being paid.
So we're back to unemployment, youth, disenfranchised, and finding solutions to be able to have an upkeep. This is a societal issue.
Absolutely. And also an issue of the times. Joe Halende, we need to hear your comments
Joe,
on this.
you're going to be quiet. You're normally chipping in.
Yeah,
you have nothing to
we
chip
need to
in
hear
here.
your take on this. Because, of course, it's quite disturbing.
Yeah, it's quite disturbing, but as my colleague has said, it's a social issue. We need to rediscover our social values. We have lost some of these values in the sense that nowadays we are pressed by the economic hardship and being fashioned. So we are losing our culture, our values, and that's how we are going to mess up.
All right. And winding up with the dailies, or rather the headline on the Daily Nation is TSC now free to hire 88,000 new teachers for the benefit of those who possibly are joining us now. We also have on the Star, Raila hits back at Wetangula. We've already talked about that, but that's the headline on the Star. There's also a picture of that bus that plunged into the River Narok yesterday, killing 17 people. And that's where we're going to wind up our segment of the show at this particular time. Thank you very much, Nerima. Rima Wako Ojiwa, and Joe Halenda for joining us this morning for this segment of the show. And thank you. Now, it is 7 minutes to 7. This is where we release our KTN Home viewers and say goodbye and wish you to enjoy the rest of your viewing as Life and Style begins. For those of us on KTN News, we do have the newsroom coming up today, and we'll be looking at matters